Welcome to the Whiskey Vault. I'm Daniel Whittington, Chancellor of Wizard Academy and Whiskey Marketing School. What happens when you have too much whiskey? I'm going to tell you a historical story, and then I'm going to give you some comments on our current situation. So, one of my whiskey heroes... Where's the part where you open this thing? One of my whiskey heroes is Louis Rosenstyle. And there's a lot of information that shows he was kind of in bed with gangsters and politicians at certain points in whiskey history. He's kind of hardcore. He was, everybody has their good and bad sides. But he also was the dude who, when World War II happened and they had to shut down distilling because he had one of the permits, and he figured out how to retool all of his plants to create fuel for the war effort instead of whiskey. And then he gave the plans away for free to all the other distillers instead of hoarding it and trying to rack up prices on fuel for everybody. And then he paid the families of his men who went to war while they were at war so that his families could still get an income. That's pretty rock and roll. And he was also shrewd and like a serious, just a whiskey dude, like crazy shrewd. And I'm a big fan. One of the coups that he pulled off happened during an era where we are, I think, currently the closest we've been to that era since, or before, really. It's closer to what happened in Scotland, but Scotland had a whiskey lock, but also had a crash in different other areas. So, Prohibition ends, World War II. So whiskey gets back going again. Hey, we're gonna make whiskey. We can make whiskey. Oh, World War. Immediately, production has to slow down and switches to fuel, and there's a shortage of whiskey stocks for everybody. And then the war ends, and immediately they start making whiskey again, and they start making a lot of whiskey. And all of a sudden, I don't know if you remember this in your history, the Korean War. Ooh, and at the time, there was a serious contingent of people who thought, because China was involved and so on, that we were about to be at World War III. And we were going to go to war again. We had just finished one, but we were about to do it again, this time with China, through Korea. And Louis Rosenstyle looked at that and said, shoot, we're about to have a whiskey shortage again. We're about to be in a position where we're going to have to stop making whiskey in order to fuel a war effort. So he ran all of the distilleries that he owned, which were multiple, and just put them into full-time production, just putting away all the new make he possibly could into whiskey barrels. And pushed the stock of whiskey, like crawling in on 700 million gallons of whiskey, enough to supply the national demand for about 8 years, according to what was currently being consumed. That's insane. Well, again, I don't know if you remember your whiskey history, but the Korean War just sort of just fizzled out, right? And they just accepted North Korea, South Korea, and then there was no demand. There was no rush on demand for whiskey. There was no closing of production. And the years are crawling on, and all of a sudden, Louis Rosenstyle is reaching this point where he's about to have to pay taxes on all these barrels of whiskey that are in his storage, because at the time, the age limit for tax purposes was 8 years old. It's now 20. Do you want to know why? Because Louis Rosenstyle. So Louis Rosenstyle is coming up against the 8-year mark, and he's like, oh, we're about to bankrupt our company because we're going to have to pay taxes on all this whiskey no one's ordering, no one's drinking. So he goes to the industry group, and the industry groups are common. This is the origin of era of IDL in Ireland, and then what became Diageo and Distillers Limited, DC, and then this group was the Distilled Spirits Institute, DSI. And it was a group of the big major players in bourbon. He went to them and he was like, guys, look, we need to lobby to get the age passed. And they said, well, hold on, you're the only one with all of this aged stock, and we haven't had time to catch up on supply. You are oversupplied with all this aged stock. If we agree to let you do this, then you are going to be way ahead of the curve on selling really old age statement whiskey, and we're not going to be able to participate in that sale. Very selfish and short-sighted, right? Because it would benefit all of them. And so they insisted that they put a clause that he wasn't allowed to sell any of his old stock whiskey until their stock caught up. Because that'll totally work. And instead, what he did was he started a new lobbying group called the Bourbon Institute. He was just like, screw you guys. I'm out of your little group. I'm going to start my own. And he lobbied, and he had all these connections anyway. Some good, some questionable. And he officially got the age statements changed from 8 to 20 years. It happened in a bill called the Forand Bill, and it was kind of snuck in. It was a communications bill, if I remember correctly. And Ronald Reagan released an album. He wasn't a president at the time. He was a mediocre actor slash politician spokesperson. And he released a vinyl record about the evils of communism. And he talked about the Forand Bill and all. Anyway, it was a very weird time. Not that different than the weird times we're currently living in. And so he gets it passed. And what does Louis Rosenthal do? Immediately starts capitalizing on the effect that he has all this age stock. And he goes after the global market for bourbon. And that's where the first footholds of bourbon in the global market start making a move. He also starts trying to figure out how to lobby to get the American spirit to be bourbon. Bourbon to be defined as an American spirit, because it wasn't at the time. Well, he's doing so well with all of his lobbying that the Distilled Spirits Institute goes, hey, look, can we just join your Bourbon Institute? Because ours, it's not working out. And so they merge and they become Discus, which is still going on. It's the main industry lobby. But that origin of Discus was Bourbon Institute and the Distilled Spirits Institute kind of merging after Louis Rosenthal just sort of screwed everybody, but who tried to screw him first. It's fair. And that's how we end up with the 20-year before taxes bonding period and the bourbon as an American spirit, which is kind of rock and roll. But it doesn't totally move through the glut of whiskey. It helps. Moving it overseas helps, but it doesn't solve everything because still we have a whiskey problem. Maker's Mark shows up eventually to start putting quality bourbon back on the market again, or high-priced bourbon on the back again. But first, let's talk about Basil Hayden 10-year-old bourbon. So they were doing an age statement. The Basil Hayden used to be an age statement. Then they removed it and called it artfully aged. And then they brought out a 10 and it kind of quieted. And now they're back with it's standard on the shelves. You can find it. It's the classic Jim Beam mash bill high rye. If I remember correctly, it's 27% rye. 27% rye. I remember it because the 27 Club, all the famous musicians who died at the age 27. That's how it connects in my head. 63% corn, 27 tin barley. It's the same mash bill as Old Granddad and Granddad. If I remember correctly, they do a different barrel entry proof for these whiskeys. Now, on the nose, smells like Basil Hayden. That sort of cherry chocolate, slightly dusty, little spicy. The oak is a little bit more present in the nose than I remember from the normal. But it smells a little thin, too, a little brittle. So it's only 40%, too. I don't anticipate the palate being... I wish that when they went to 10-year, they had brought up the proof a little bit. They didn't. Aw. It's meh. It starts like it's going to do something really magnificent. It kicks off and goes dark chocolate and cherry, and then goes grassy, and then goes, nah, and then rolls backwards. And, I mean, it just sort of dissipates, vanishes. There's no lingering. There's no strong aftertaste, a slightly just classic bourbon aftertaste. The finish, a little bit oaky. That's where the wood grain shows up a little bit. Even spreading it around, it does it again. Starts chocolate cherry, starts sweet, goes a little grassy, and then poof, just completely vanishes. I don't know, man. I really want more out of this. It's a beautiful bottle. I like that they went with the like color reverse, the black with the beautiful label. I mean, they always, of course, they do the packaging well. I think with how much money I spent on buying this for us to try today, I would rather have just bought any of the other Basil Haydens. The subtle smoke one was really interesting. I liked that one. Still, it was very subtle. Okay, yeah, it's fine. Not really what you want to hear about a 10-year-old age statement bourbon, but it's fine. Okay, so where are we at now? And I'm going to add a little water and see if that does absolutely anything, or just makes it less so. We got a lot of bourbon, and the entire whiskey industry is struggling right now. They're struggling because the drinking public is changing, what they're drinking is changing. There's a whole movement of non-drinkers right now of all ages, of people who are just completely going like, nope, I'm good. And that's having a big impact on the entire alcohol industry. Scotland's closing distilleries. Ireland, there's just craft distilleries are going belly up. The sales numbers are terrible. I get it. And at the same time, this is all coming. I remember, was it 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago? I was in Louisville hanging out with the Moonshine U crew, amazing human beings, and we were having this long discussion about how insanely big all of the production was ramping up on all of these big brands. MGP, anyway, Heaven, like everybody's building new warehouses, tripling production, getting bigger. Everyone's just going all in. That was less than 3 years ago, like 3 to 5 years ago, guys. And here it comes. Oh, so where does that leave us? We're not far off from the bourbon glut that was happening in the 60s and 70s and 80s. Look back and look and see what happened, and you'll get some insight into what's possible. Now, the landscape is different, right? We got the internet, and when we got online sales, we can, global shipping is, once you get rid of the tariffs, global shipping is different, the global market changed. There's way more whiskey drinkers, I think, in general now than there was then, but there's also way more whiskey than there was now. I think what's coming is that we are going to see distilleries close. We are going to see staff laid off. We are going to see things consolidate and brand production halting. But as always, there's going to be a future and things are going to happen next. And the spoils of that battle are going to go to the people who use this opportunity to invest in the future of whiskey as opposed to shrink their purses, tighten up, and hope to wait it out. The people who will take this moment to buy up shockingly low-priced barrels that only like 3 years ago were going for astronomical amounts of money, and now people are just trying to offload as much as they can. Buy those barrels, buying up distilleries, buying up brands, training their staff and sales teams to spending the time to create marketing campaigns and communication that has a genuine story connection with the consumer. This is going to be a window where the people who come out the other side of it, if they've taken the time to stay in the game while everyone else is freaking out, have a chance to own consumer mind share in ways that they would not have had a shot at. All these people are going to be pulling back, and the spoils are going to go to the people who show up. So guys, craft guys, if you can pull it off, I know it's terrifying, but this is the time to show up. This is the time when you can show up in a bar and all these big brand companies, Pernod, Diageo, they're all killing brand rep sales numbers. They're all pulling staff. So all these bars used to get visits from all these reps throwing around money. Guess who's not showing up anymore? Guess who's right for someone new to come in and say, hey, I want to be your relationship. I want to help build your bar and your back. There's all kinds of opportunity right now, but it's going to go to the people who are willing to take the risk in the face of it being tough. And it's not going to be easy, and some people won't pull it off. And that's the nature of entrepreneur. That's the nature of business. Unfortunately, we can't pull a trigger like make bourbon the national spirit because it's already been done. But there's other things that we can do. And I'll talk about those at a different time. It smells way fruitier, way sweeter, way more cherry on the nose with a little water added. It tastes like almost nothing. Wow. I had more drama from the iced tea I was drinking before I got up here. Only this has alcohol in it. Not a great trade-off. It was better at the 40. I'm really glad you're here. Cheers. With enough likes and subscribes, we can make this the official YouTube channel of Drinking Bourbon at Wizard Academy.